What's up, guys? So you may have noticed that I am in a bit of a different location. I'm actually in a hotel right now in a small town called Pilot Knob, in an area known as Arcadia Valley. I came out here last year to bring New Year's into 2017, and I figured that I would do the same this year. It's a couple days until New Year's, but it's close enough, so I've made a bit of a tradition out of it. So the reason I'm out here is sort of to reflect, to sort of get away from the city, and to sort of think about how this year's been. And also to get a bit of reading. I have several books here, but this is sort of how I like to bring the new year in now, to sort of spend some time out and outdoors and to reflect and just think about how I want this new year to be. So tomorrow I will actually be out venturing on the various areas out here. There's some very scenic spots. I wanted to do a little bit today, but I got here and it was about 4 o'clock and it would have been dark by the time I had went out. So I will actually show you guys that in this video. But of course that will come tomorrow. But I did want to talk about this book here. It's called Tribe. It was recommended to me by a buddy. We were a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how, she mentioned that she believes that relationships and love is becoming an unknown or perhaps a dying emotion now. Now, maybe that's a little bit extreme, but from the basis of what she said, it sort of led to, I'm guessing it led to her recommending me this book. So one of the things it talks about in here is how, as I just read, how some of the Americans, centuries ago would be captured by Native Americans and how a lot of them did not actually want to return. And the whole basis behind why this happens is because of this notion called tribe. And that's actually what the book's called, by Sebastian Junger. Perhaps some of you guys are aware of who he is. I think he wrote the book called War. There's another book, The Perfect Storm. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was a film about that. I am familiar with this film, what's it called? Restrepo. I remember watching that a couple of years ago, and of course I didn't necessarily know who it was by, but it was a great film, a great documentary. But anyways, so the whole basis behind this is tribe, that we have this innate nature to go towards tribal societies, and that's something that we seem to perhaps be missing today. Now, if you think about the amount of perhaps depression, the amount of issues, emotional issues that perhaps are going on in today's time, and you think about this notion of tribe, they sort of do go hand in hand together. Now, if you think about that, it seems that as we develop further into technology, as we further advance as society goes on, the many of the things that sort of bring us together, that sort of bridge the gap between us proximity wise, we are surrounded by many people today, and yet at the same time, many people are feeling alone. I talked about this before about, me feeling that this was a basis of, the depression that I felt years ago, was this feeling of being alone. Despite being around several people, around many people, is this feeling of not necessarily having a place or not necessarily fitting in, that I believe that sort of contributed towards it. And I think that this is perhaps one of the things that's contributing towards this, issue with depression for many people. The reason why many people feel alone in today's society, out of place. This talks about, it has several examples of how after traumatic events, of how after, catastrophic events, it sort of equalizes people. It sort of brings people together. It sort of breaks the barrier, the economic barrier, the class barrier amongst people. And everyone is basically hovering back to our basic instincts, which is to survive, food, water, shelter, taking care of the, those that are harmed, and protecting those that are not. And if you think about how this sort of happens, I think that it mentioned that after, for those of you in the U.S. that are familiar with 9/11, it mentions that after that, the suicide rate dropped around 20%. For the next several months, and also the rate of crime dropped around 60% for, I think it was 4 months. And those those sort of numbers are very indicative of, what happens after these events. People more so grieve together. People feel as if everyone is a part of the issue. Everyone is a part of this traumatic events that's happened, and suddenly it doesn't become we start to become a little bit selfless. We're not so concerned about how we're feeling. We're not so concerned about, how we're feeling as far as, the negative things that are going on in our lives, because many people have lost families. People have lost members of their family in these sorts of traumatic events. And, and it tend to pushes us from thinking about ourselves to being a little bit more caring towards other people, being a little bit more selfless towards other people. And, having that bit of a role, having that bit of significance really makes a difference. Another thing that it mentions here is how during how soldiers returning from war, how there's this bit of a divide that Sebastian believes is related to the amounts of PTSD that are occurring. And he stated that when veterans return back from war into a peaceful society, for the U.S., for example, we've been fairly peace for quite a while. When was the last war that was fought on U.S. soil? I'm not really sure when that was, but other than perhaps mass shootings and these sorts of events, most people here are experiencing peacetime, and to return back from a bit more of a chaotic society, or areas during war, soldiers sort of feel out of place in a way. And one of the things that he mentioned is how little small things that we do here, the events that we honor veterans, the words that we say about we support our troops, about how these things don't necessarily benefit those veterans. It more so creates or furthers makes more significant the bit of a gap that there exists between them and the normal society. How it would be actually more beneficial if everyone sort of shared the experiences that went on. It talks about how in some of those countries that war is a little bit more ingrained with normal society, with people in general, that there's a bit less of PTSD and these sort of disorders that arise because society themselves, normal communities, they already are familiar with what's going on in these wars. And soldiers returning back home, they return to families and people who understand what they perhaps gone through a certain level, and they don't sort of create this barrier by perhaps saying things or doing events that can sort of create that bit of feel that there's a separation between the two. So that societies that are a little bit more familiar with non-peacetime seem to benefit a lot more. Another interesting thing that was mentioned here is how during World War II, in Germany, when actually in London, when they were getting bombed by the Germans, how many of the people of the cities were being put, they went down to bunkers to sort of protect themselves. And that in those times, you would think that the amount of emotional stress, the amount of psychological issues would increase. Actually, during these times, they decrease because as I said before, everyone sort of felt the chaos of war, the stress of war together. And when everyone sort of comes together and has this sense of unity, then, that's actually beneficial. It was talking about how, during certain points, people were actually enjoying themselves. And when the war was over, many of the people missed it. And that's one of the things that we'll see amongst veterans also. You'll hear many times they say they sort of missed the war because they missed that little band of brotherhood that came with their units. And that's something that, when you come back to peaceful societies, it's sort of missing, So overall, this book sort of talks about how we benefit more in tribal societies. We benefit more when everyone is actually contributing towards some cause, or everyone's contributing towards the survival of the society. If you think back centuries ago, when perhaps, like as I said in here, Indian or Native American tribes were sort of everyone had a role. You had those who went out to hunt and do all these sorts of things, and perhaps women who were stayed back and tend kids and prepared food and all these sorts of things, pottery and clothing. everyone had a role in society, or everyone had something that they were participating in that contributed to the overall survival of the group. And that is something that we don't necessarily have today, or something that seems to be diminishing in today's time. You know, as I said before, as we advance, as we move forward, as we have all these sorts of advancements that, you know, make life a little bit easier or make life a little bit better, and, you know, bridge that gap between communication. We can text people, we can instant message people, or video chat with people instantly now. And despite that, despite being able to bridge that gap between someone thousands of miles away from you, there still seems to be this bit of divide. And this divide exists even within families. And I truly believe that that's part of, you know, perhaps some of the mental issues that we are seeing now. But anyways, this is a really great read. I made a ton of notes on this actually within this book, and I wrote some down as well. And I tried to talk about this before, but I found myself kind of surrounded by my notes a bit too much. So I figured that I would just talk about it while I was out here. As I said, I will show you guys a little bit of the outdoors out there in this video. So I will actually just wait until I get out there. So see you then.
What's up, guys? So I am out of bed a little bit later than I wanted to be, and as a result, I'm pushing for time. The first location I want to go to is like 37 minutes away from my hotel, so I'm going to try to get out here as quick as I can so that way I can still catch another couple places.
What's up, guys? I am out in the first location. It's called Pickle Springs. It's a little trail down there. It looks like there's a couple of them. It's a little bit sunny earlier when I came, when I got up. But I guess I waited until it kind of got muggy again, so visibility is kind of bad. But hopefully you guys can still see. But yeah, I'm gonna go in this area and see what's down here. As I said before, I like to kind of get out, and at least I did this last year. I went in a different location where I went out and sort of brought the new year in, out in the outdoors, just a way to get out and reflect and, you know, think about how the past year has been, how the new year can be, or how I would like the new year to be. But yeah, it's a little creepy. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm actually gonna take a couple pictures here, so I'm gonna stay in this spot for a little bit. But like I said, I didn't want to make this video too long, so I'm just only gonna show little pieces of areas that I go in. But I encourage you guys to do this often, also to get out in nature. It really helps out a lot. You know, I grew up in Alabama, out in the country for the most part, and it wasn't easy to find spots to kind of escape to. Gotta be careful walking down these. There's a little ice on them. Rock formations here are beautiful. So I thought this was 1 mile. Maybe it is, but I feel like I've been walking a lot longer than, well, I feel like I've covered a lot more than a mile. And I can admit I am slightly getting out of breath. I am feeling a little bit creeped out about where I am right now. For sure I can I go up a little bit more, but I'm a little bit nervous about doing that, so I'm not gonna risk that. I am not so afraid of heights. I used to do construction a bit with my uncle years ago on top of homes, and to be honest, I didn't want to go a little bit any more higher than I really needed to go. I feel like I'm off trail right now. I can see this area down here, and there's, like, I guess a trail there. And I'm trying to really, like I said, I thought that this trail was only a mile long. And I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to be going down here, or, because it looks like a little, you know, a walking path in a way. But it could very well put me back on the same area that I was on before. There's another part up here, which is possibly the right way to go. So I think I'm just gonna go back up there. Nothing seems familiar yet. I am still coming across bridges and everything. So I gotta feel okay, or at least think that I'm going the right way. And the only other possible thing is I could end up on another side of the trail, not where I parked my car. And I really don't want to have to walk all the way back, because like I said, I'm pretty sure I've walked further than a mile now. The more I walk, the more I start to feel like I am going to have to go all the way back around, because I just saw this little sign back here that says Rockpile Canyon, and I don't know if that's a place that you can you can necessarily go to as far as like a trail, specific trail came out here, but I keep going off on, I don't know, I could have sworn that there was a loop that goes all the way around, yet I still end up walking, I'm pretty sure, a lot further than a mile. I've said this several times, and yet I keep walking, and I still end up further and further out. And at this point, my battery, I think the cold is starting to kind of degrade my battery a lot faster than normal, down to like 21% now. So I'm probably gonna have to stop recording as much as I am doing to try to make it back to the front. All right, guys. Promising sign. I actually saw one back there. There was another person that was a little bit of a distance away from me, so I figured that I was going in the right direction. And I'm back at the map. Actually, let's see this. 2 miles. Estimated walk for 1 hour. I don't know why I saw 1 hour. 1 hour. Maybe I saw the 1 hour and thought 1 mile. It's 1:20, and I started around noon. So yeah, that looks like it adds up perfectly. So I was wondering like how the hell I got in here, but it turns out like this is the way that I came in, and this is the way I just came back through. So looks like I made it back. So I'm going to charge my phone up a little bit and then try to find a different area. So I don't know, I may find a different area depending on how long this video is. If it's extremely long, then I will cut it off and just make a second part maybe. And if it's not, then I will go ahead and put it on this one. So see you guys later. We're at the top of Missouri. According to this thing, this is the highest point in Missouri. It almost looks like there are some higher points over there, but hey, according to this, we are. So anyways, I don't know how much I'm going to show you guys next, or if I show anything. If I don't, then I hope you guys have enjoyed. I tried not to keep this video too long, but I think it's going to be longer than I anticipated it being. So I hope that you've watched up until this point, and till next time, I'll talk to you later.